Hello. Well, I haven't been giving the titles of these videos in terms of Frequency Bone Summer Music Connection 16 Video 5. Well, I just did for this one. I did make a video about a month ago called Equipment Hell. And I was going through a whole thing about, this isn't the right mouthpiece, because I could feel things changing. And I went to a smaller mouthpiece for a few weeks and then went, wait a minute, something's not right. Then I switched bells. I went back to playing my Shires. I was trying all my Monette, was doing things on the con and trying the two different mouthpieces, and then went to the Shires and then said, you know what? I need something with greater resistance. And so I ended up, I'm back on the Shires now, and I'm playing a heavyweight red brass bell that I played, quite a few years ago now. Probably like 13, 14 years ago. And it has, a real kind of depth and richness in it. And I was starting to miss that a bit. But my equipment hell started to end when I found the right combination of resistance that I need at this period of time in my life, and a mouthpiece that would be a good fit for that resistance. So the mouthpiece, if that had a lot of resistance too, it wouldn't work. So the bigger mouthpiece I was playing, because my dental structure changed, like missing teeth. I had to go back to the 3.5G, which is pretty big, for me. And I was playing that for quite a while, and then I felt, I need more kind of focus and a little more resistance. And the 4GS, Greg Black 4GS seemed to help that. But then I felt I needed something more because I felt this urge for richness in my sound. It's like sometimes you get the urge to have more foods that are fatty, right? And so I ended up with the heavyweight red brass bell to create the resistance that I need to compensate for my, lung capacity that isn't phenomenal. And I actually can increase the length of a line by having that little resistance, believe it or not. So it just doesn't fall out and my ear is gone in no time. So the 3.5G offered me more room to compensate for the resistance of the heavy red brass bell. So it's feeling pretty good lately, in terms of that aspect. But interesting things along the way, I found that I actually tongue better on the bigger mouthpiece than the smaller one. I wouldn't have thought that just if I'd intellectualize it, but it actually, when you're tonguing, for me, it does something to the embouchure that needs more room to move in. And so I was amazed how much easier the articulation felt and certain flexibility on the bigger mouthpiece. Now, sustained high range playing, that's going to take me a while to build up to anyway. I used to be very good at it. I'm not sure it's ever going to get to back to what it was at all. I'm not even thinking that way anymore. If I could only go back in time and do that. No. I heard too many older players when I was younger. John Coffey used to talk about all the great things he did. I used to play bolero and it was duck soup. He was a great bass trombone player of his time. He played with Kutzewski, he played with Zell in Cleveland. He had a music store in Boston when I first came there in 73, which he had. And every time he'd see me, hey kid, let me talk to you. Meanwhile, it was during this person's lesson, I was like, oh no, That's okay. Come back next week, kid. And then he'd sit and talk to me, tell me all these stories. And I thought, that's cool. And there was some other older players that I met, like Harry Glantz, the great trumpet player, and he took out a wallet when I said, "Oh, Mr. Glantz, it's such an honor to meet you." You know, I heard him on the Toscanini recordings. Incredible solidity, first trumpet. And as soon as I said that, he pulled out his wallet. And all these pictures came out of it. I mean, this long line of pictures that people used to have in their wallets instead of on their phones, because the phones weren't available then. And I went, wow, this is another thing. And I said, when I'm older, I'm not going to do that. Now, what I do is talk about certain things in relationship to where I am now and the differences, and to encourage welcoming change so you can see what your art has in store for you now. And what else needs to be expressed out of you, instead of thinking you have to take some form of brass player's Viagra to still keep things, the way they used to be. I don't live in the past that way at all. I have wonderful things that a great mentor of mine said, backward cascading. You look back in time and you might be able to put together greater value for what happened to you at that time than you even could feel back then. So you can always learn by going back in time and follow the sequences of your life in a certain kind of way and pick out the values along the way. And were those hard times really just hard, or were they actually trying to tell you something that could help you move to the next level? So I wanted to share that, talking about keeping up with what you need now. Don't be afraid to play if you're not what you used to be, or what people remember you from the recordings. That's a snapshot of the past. And people still think that way in their mind about, wow, I'm going to need a hair transplant and dye my beard the dark color it used to be and try to start working out with more weights to look like I'm not as thin as I am now, and all this absurdity. Paint hair on my legs to make it look like they have hair on them. I mean, really, think about it. This is something that can happen to people instead of embracing the art of where you're at now. I think it's vital. And you might have, if you still want to play and you're craving certain things, you don't always have to go out and get new equipment. I had that red brass bell, that heavyweight, and some other things hanging around. I have enough. I don't feel like I have to have all new horns made for me, even though part of me would think, wow, I'm imagining a whole other instrument that maybe I should have someone make for me. But that's another topic, and I probably won't. But making the most of what you have, and I have enough little mouthpieces hanging around to get some ideas. So that's a little bit. So equipment hell can come and go, and it'll probably come around again, and maybe I'll switch back to another mouthpiece, take off the heavy bell, do something else for a week, and then come back. One of the great things that I've known for a long time along these lines is sometimes playing an equipment that has a certain structure that you have to blow through it a certain way, and your embouchure adjusts according to the needs of that mouthpiece. And sometimes that's the tweak you need to then go back on the instrument you do play, and you go, hey, this feels pretty good now. but it was because of the conditioning of the equipment that you were playing on before that. So sometimes now, if my lip feels, oh gosh, this is getting kind of tired and all that, I'll go back to something smaller, which doesn't take for me as much out of the corners, the hinge joints, and it'll start to relax and then just vibrate a certain way. Then I'll try to take those qualities. I don't even have to try really to take them, because I just condition myself literally physically by playing this other equipment, go back to the bigger equipment, mouthpiece speaking, and go, wow, there it is. And then I try to think about that so I don't have to depend on going back to the other equipment, but see if I can get myself in the place where that is, connect to that, and then play the instrument. And sometimes it's a microscopic tweak in some part of the embouchure anatomy. In my last video, I was talking about Bolter embouchure anatomy. And really, I'm thinking about making a map, an embouchure map, mapping it, so people can see how certain things are related with the diagonal access points, okay, vertical access points, horizontal, excuse me, I'm saying it wrong, horizontal lines, access lines, which each one has a point at the end and in the middle and all along the way, because you can take a line and make it into points. And then the same thing with the horizontal access line or bar that holds the hinge joints or the corners of the embouchure together. And then this whole area called the beak and the many different points around that sometimes a microscopic tweak can help. Yes, it's the realm of complication, but you know what? I was also discussing how there's many different ways to breathe, just not one. And the essence of what I'm talking about is there's many different approaches if we let ourselves reapproach and look at things in a different way, from lines to points, and see where they map together. But only if it's needed. If you're teaching and you don't know any of that, then you'll probably go back to just won't play as much or take little rests and then, practice this and practice that and record yourself. That can help, of course. But like a great doctor would know the in and outs of the anatomy of any particular thing, and that's why they're specialists, okay? A heart specialist knows that, look at what you do to the heart is going to affect circulation all over the place. Okay? And so I know a lot of different things that will access. You can access a certain point and it'll affect another point because they're connected. So it's an interesting topic, very, very interesting. And for a teacher to know some of that, I think it could be very useful. You don't have to get complicated with someone. You can say, oh gosh, if you only, could just find the connection between your bottom vertical horizontal line, okay? Which is part of the foundational ridge, you might find that your embouchure stabilizes much easier by just thinking of that small point instead of a big unit. And for some people, it might be the reverse. So, on that note, I also thought about mouthpiece pressure in a different way I hadn't thought about in a while. I thought, hey, I'm going to start using some mouthpiece pressure a little bit every now and then. Why not? Now, I brought that up because that used to create some quivers. It still had a slight something, but not bad from my perspective at this point. And that's because I'm combining. Wow, sorry about the glare. That's because it's combining something with the bottom vertical central, or the bottom central vertical line, and a little more mouthpiece pressure in a particular location. And that particular place was a little more on the top lip, which goes with the fact I need a little more pressure lately. And then I thought, when I was younger, I played with a hefty amount of mouthpiece pressure. But I didn't have a lot of corner strength. But totally didn't need it because I had other strengths. So it's making the most of what you got. And of course, that ties into talking about, can you create your circumstances, which is the essence of creativity. So a little more on that.